What's going on, everybody? Here, welcome to JohnnyVTV Live on this Tuesday, December 6th. My boy Joey Cowles couldn't make it tonight. Emergency session. Nick Durst, he's off somewhere. I don't know what he's doing, but I got a great guest for you guys tonight. We got a guy who's been in the business for over 35 years. He's been in handicapping and makes a ton of money for a bettor. JohnnyVTV Live is welcoming on Mr. John Murges. How are we doing, sir? Thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me, Johnny. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. You know, it was a tough week in the NFL. And, you know, the both of us were on the same side as the Jets +3. And, you know, I don't know about you, but for me in particular, I feel like I've had so many good looks on games this year. But the 50-50 ball, the side of the coin, has always gone against me. It's probably been ball bouncing against me, I would say 90% of the time this year. What about you?
Yeah, this year, it has been a tough year for the for most bettors. Last week we were talking earlier last week, you get 8 favorites hitting, the public did okay. But in NFL, I'm about 60%, 60.01% to be exact. So I've been having a good NFL year. Anything over 58 for me is good. But it has been a tough year. A lot of late flags. That's what's killing me. I see these late flags come out. The play's over for 10 seconds. Oh, there's a flag, because the coaches are complaining, whatever. And that bothers me a little bit. But we won't get any conspiracy theories because we try to avoid
Can we please? I've been on so a lot of the times where I've been on the wrong side of the bounce, a lot of times I've been on the wrong side of the flags. It's egregious officiating this year, but in terms of let's forget about the amount of penalties. It's key penalties. It's penalties that are keeping drives alive. It's penalties that are ultimately affecting outcomes of the games here. And let's call it what it is. That Jets-Vikings game, let's use it as an example. Every single key call, except for maybe one or two, went against the Jets when the Vikings, they swallowed the whistle on. How many times? Yeah, how many? One of which was early in the game, and White throws a curl route. I don't remember if it was Garrett Wilson, and Harrison Smith jumped on his back a good second before the ball arrived. They don't call it on a key third down. The ball ends up getting tipped and intercepted. Exactly. So instead of getting the flag there, I'm keeping the drive alive. And, who knows how that shakes things out. That's a key call. Then that's just one that I'm discussing in this game in particular. But that's been a microcosm of how the season's been going in terms of officiating.
Exactly. And you know what? It's especially late in the game, the officials have to be, conscious of let these guys play a little bit. All right. A little grab or something on the offensive line. Don't throw a holding flag. Don't throw a flag for holding, but they got to be so involved. They love to hear the crowds roar. It's been going on for years. These guys are throwing flags at the wrong time, especially with just seconds, or a couple minutes remaining. I really can't complain. Some of them have gone my way. That's when I'm happy. When the great penalty. But you're right, Johnny. There's not much we can do about it. The league has to revisit, and these guys need to, get the proper training. These NFL officials. So many new guys that I've never seen before. It's always important to see who's officiating games. Guys that call a lot of penalties. I've been watching real closely, Johnny, real closely to make sure these guys I'm sure they're being honest, but you make a good point about these late flags burning people.
I can't. The worst game I've been burned by officiating this year was Seattle at New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Or I don't know if you watched that game. I had it like a hawk. Brad Allen, he looks like a 40-year-old eighth grader. He burned me on four different times, and I just I'm not going to go back down memory lane and go rip up open old wounds, but that was the clear case of it looked like, this guy was on the take here. I don't want to start with the conspiracy theories, but you know what? This is what helps me voice my frustrations and make me feel a little bit better. So, listen, the NFL expects all of their players and coaches and everybody to be held to a certain standard. So I do think it's time that they publicly hold those referees to the same standard.
Exactly. And you know what? The funny thing is on the take, that's funny. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but it happens. And it's happened, I should say. No, I you just don't know. These are human beings, that's why a lot of guys, and especially not that we're talking about college, but you bring in that NIL money. Well, not everybody's getting big NIL money. So you got to watch these kids kind of close. There's got to be more oversight. The pro guys, I mean, listen, it's a game where you could break your neck and be a paraplegic. You would hope that they're playing these games, every game, on the up and up, which hopefully they are. Um, Sports betting being mainstream has taken a lot of new players and brought them in. The boost, the deposit, matches, things like that. And then people are thinking this is the easiest thing to do. Listen, in 40 years of doing this, it's not easy. It's hard. And if you want to do it, you got to be really dedicated. Which you are, I know. I am. All the guys that I talk to are. You got to really do your homework. Sometimes that doesn't even work, but we do the best we can.
Sometimes you need a little luck, John. You need a little luck. So,
Yeah, I got lucky last night. Actually, I didn't make it an official play for me and tweet it out, but I was riding that Bucks money line, saying, "Damn, what the hell am I doing?" And then
I
watch
can't.
that
You know
last
what?
3 minutes.
That's ripping up. That's ripping up a wound here. I don't
I
mean to
know
be
we
ripping
talked
up.
about it last night. Yeah,
I
yeah, I
can't. I
know.
can't. I can't go down that road with you tonight because that's too
I know.
fresh in my
I
mind.
couldn't
But
give that 3. I couldn't give that 3 points put to the Saints. I'm like, you're giving 3 points to the Saints. Come on, this game could be a 1 point game. Shit, sure enough. But it happens.
John, take us through here. What's your favorite matchup heading into Week 14?
Well, as we talked last night, my favorite matchup has got to be. I mean, it's on everybody's radar. That Eagles Giants game. That's I love it. I love this matchup. There's some other ones, um, but I want to see how this kid for Frisco does against the Buccaneers. That's for sure. Um, Dolphins at Chargers on Sunday night is another one I like a lot. I mean, you're putting two teams out there. Did you get the status on Tua?
I
Um,
haven't heard if Tua is going to miss. I mean, we've been
yeah.
seeing some money go towards the Chargers in that favor. But you know what, man? Since you brought that up first, let's start with the Miami Dolphins
Okay.
at the Los Angeles Chargers here, shall we?
Let's do it. Shoot. Let's do it.
LAC is 3-point home favorites.
Right.
Now, here's the thing what bothered me. And I talked about this on Sunday while it was going on. If the Chargers didn't beat the Raiders, they were in bad position because what happened is if they did beat LV while the game, this is while the game was going on. Now they're in a position where if Miami loses and LAC is set up to overtake them in the playoff race, if they came in this Sunday night and won. This is before any results were determined or anything like that. So I said that's why this Vegas game was huge for the Chargers to win. Luckily, Miami lost. But
Right.
still, now the Chargers, again, they're behind the 8 ball. I mean, you got the Jets that are still hanging tough. The Bengals, Ravens, I think, the Ravens are still in there. I think the Bengals are going to overtake them for the division. The Patriots are drawing dead. And ultimately, you're going to have the Miami Dolphins still in there. And I think this is a huge game. If LAC loses this, I think they're virtually done for the playoffs. I don't think they're going to recover, most likely, unless, all the other wild card teams lose.
Yeah, the Chargers haven't been good to me this year at all. But make it so. Both teams are. This game's going to be an air attack game, especially if Tua is able to go. Um, they're at the bottom of the league in rushing. Both teams. Miami's 31st, Chargers 31st. Miami's 28th, and so we're going to see a lot of passing. Um, looking at that total too, just because. Hey, listen, I mean, they're going to throw the ball. Yeah, 51.5 just tells you right there. This is going to be a passing game. But I agree. The Chargers lose this at 6-6, and they can basically just, phone in the rest of the season because they're done. Miami at 9-4. Well, here's a dangerous team, especially a healthy Miami team. Something nobody really expected. They know they'd be improved, but they're a good team. Play a little defense, play good offense. Tyreek Hill, man, the guy's a monster. He's just amazing the way he played. I think I talked about it last night. Went to see a Bucks Miami inter squad scrimmage before the season. Tyreek Hill's laid out in practice, just catching everything. It was the best player out there. I was like, this guy's just awesome. So he'll be a factor. No weather involved. We won't get into who we like because it's so early in the week, but we'll see what the real injury reports say. I don't use the word lean, but I kind of like Miami.
So this is why I picked San Francisco last week. The big telltale heading into the game was, all right, what's going on with Teron Armstead? And as it became apparent that he was going to be out for this game, along with the other tackle, Austin Jackson, that was the deciding factor with me for San Francisco. And ultimately, if it's going to be Armstead missing this game, then I think, 3 points is fair with the Chargers at home. Let's see if maybe Mike Will gets back on the field. Miami's defense is not that good. I think Eckler can destroy them in the pass game. In the rush game, he could do some solid stuff. I just think the big problem for the Chargers ultimately is that run defense because, Mike McDaniel, where he came from. He came from San Francisco. What did he bring with him from San Francisco? That zone run scheme that Kyle Shanahan loved to exploit teams with. And he's got the backs that used to be in that exact same system on that team. So that's the one area that concerns me. And ultimately,
it should concern you. Yeah, it should. I mean, they're allowing 150 yards on average per game rushing. The Chargers are, and that's it's not a good thing. I mean, you can pound the ball. They will run. There's no doubt. I mean, Miami will run. You're going to take advantage. You got to open up the passing lanes. But this spread it's a good number they put out there. These books know what they're doing. Making Miami the road favorite. But you know what? Home dogs are one of my favorite things to bet. You take the home dog, especially on a Sunday night or Monday night. But in this game, Miami should be the favorite, and they are.
I would ultimately, I need a little more time on this one. Like I said, I want to see what's going on injury report wise. I think, Tyreek Hill, we can expect more fireworks. I have a nice position on him in the futures market for Offensive Player of the Year right now. And, I also have Justin Jefferson as well. He was my preseason pick. Jalen Hurts is threatening it right now, but the fact that LAC can give up a lot of big plays. I mean, look what Tay Adams did to them, on Sunday. I think Tyreek Hill could be in that position with or without Tua. We've seen Teddy Bridgewater be able to step it up. So I would be looking at some Tyreek Hill props heading into Sunday night, and I'd probably look to try to ladder him, take him at his over, and then start playing him probably all the way up to about 120 yards, 125 yards or more. I think he could go for 140, 150 against this defense.
Well, as I said, don't be greedy now. When you got those props, when you have something that's firm, you got my number. Just text me, let me know, because I'll tell you. I got a lot of young guys like yourself that I utilize. For they're in fantasy and they've got 10 teams, and I utilize a lot of guys. I don't play any fantasy football anymore. Just watching those numbers. Let's see those numbers move. Where are we going? Where's the money going? Because I like to ride with the books.
What's crazy here too is like the fact of the matter is numbers are skewed. People are like, oh, numbers never lie. I don't believe that. So, the Chargers have some horses in the secondary even without J.C. Jackson. Asante Samuel hasn't been his peak this year. He's one of the corners that have allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers in primary coverage. Derwin James is an absolute animal. I think they still have Mike Davis. So, they're obviously terrible in the run. That's where teams look to exploit them. But, sure, they've given up 12 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers this year. That's among the league worst. They've given up, they've given up around middle of the pack yards to wide receivers this year, but Tyreek Hill's been far from average, hasn't he? I think this
Oh,
is something
absolutely.
where people really can't contain him, and he's on an absolute killing spree lately for secondary. So, Tyreek Hill is becoming like Cooper Cup in the fact that, he's getting a lot of volume and defenses just are having a tough
Absolutely.
time stopping him.
Absolutely. Oh, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this guy's an animal, like I said. But yeah, that's going to be a good game. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Probably be a few bucks on it. Um, but yeah, I I lean. I'll use the word. I lean Miami right now.
The one issue that I'm waiting to see is if what's going to happen with Jalen Waddle, because now if Jalen Waddle misses, then it ultimately has a chain reaction. I still think Tyree can get loose. Let's not
You have
get
to limit
worried
without
there.
Waddle. Yeah, without Waddle, you got to. There's some limits there, and it's. I always believe guys put a lot, and you should put a lot into injuries. And from what I've seen over the years, hey, listen, it's NFL football, man. They're paying you big money. Next man up, and I don't I don't mean in a hardcore way, but it's actually next man up. Um, I'm actually looking at these lines right now. Yeah, you got to have it. But
So,
I
John,
agree with you. Yes,
speaking
sir.
of next man up, that brings us to our next game here. Tampa
All
Bay
right.
Buccaneers at the San Francisco 49ers. It's a 3.5 point spread right now, maybe four, depending on where you're looking. The look ahead line was San Francisco -6 with Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you think
Right.
the drop off between Jimmy G and Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, is worth two, even 2.5 points in some cases?
God, what was Purdy, man? Something like 25 for 32, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception? I mean, that's just off the top of my head. I mean, he came in, Jimmy G got hurt in the first series, correct? First or
I don't know if it was the first series. It might have been a
first or second.
little bit later.
Yeah, but the first half at least. Yeah, early first half.
That was
But
early.
I
Yeah.
mean, is there a drop off? The kid looked good. I mean, and I'm calling him a kid because he's playing the GOAT. And you know, it opened at 6 with Garoppolo. They're still favored right now as I look at the numbers, but boy, you got 93% early. This is early this week, but 93% of the money on Tampa Bay
Mm-mm.
getting the 5.5. They say 5.5 at open, but it was 6. Um, it's down to 3 at some places. I don't know. That's a tough Johnny. That's a tough game. I mean, the Bucks had a great comeback. You don't worry about too much about letdown in NFL, but you're playing in Frisco. They're on a 5-game winning streak. This is the stuff that I pay attention to. We'll see more injuries later on. I don't expect the Bucks to have many. Garoppolo's huge though. I mean,
You think so?
yeah, I mean he's 5 in a row. Five. Well, this kid had a lot to do with the fifth win. I always liked Jimmy G. I always thought he'd be coming down. Brady leaves, make a deal for Jimmy G. Um, Maybe we don't see that much of a drop off. Boy, but that's a big spread right there as far as 93% of the money, 59% of the tickets. But it's early. Um, I would say that this game, 3.5. Three's a good number. I mean, I can see San Francisco -3. You got to travel to the West Coast, which is a lot easier than traveling to the East Coast. Tampa Bay's defense is questionable. Saw a lot of guys left wide open last night with the Tampa Bay defense. I mean, all they were doing was yelling at their cornerbacks. What are you doing? I mean, you got some young guys in there filling in. I do like the Bucks getting points, but but they're on the road, and so that's up. Tom Brady's coming home. That's another thing we got to think about. Guys like to play in their backyard. Tom Brady's from Northern California, as you know. Um, it's early, but I don't see that spread moving much. It's three's probably the resistance. It's not going under 3. Um, the total 37. Seems low to me, bro, Johnny. And I'm not a big totals player, but 37 points and two teams that can. The Buccaneers have been having a hard time. Vegas knows what they're doing. Who am I to question why they put a 37 out there?
They're thinking right now. I could see it in their head. What they're thinking right now. Niners either 2017 or 21-17. That's exact.
I could see
That's
it.
a
Yeah.
classic Super Bowl score. That's exactly what they're thinking. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I've been the worst person when it comes to betting games involving Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's why I don't bet any games that involve the Bucs. I stopped after like week 3, week 4,
Right.
because you literally never know what you're going to get. You think every time they're supposed to step up, and all of Tom Brady's, he's coming home, and all of Tom Brady's this and that. And Tampa Bay is not a good team, and they should have lost. We would have a much different conversation if all this bullshit didn't happen last night, and that's truly what it was. I think ultimately, though, there's not a huge drop off from Garoppolo to Purdy as of right now, because basically what Jimmy Garoppolo's asked to be his whole time was a captain of the ship. Not very high, not very low, steady Eddie. And if Brock Purdy can do that and fill into that system, hand the ball off to McCaffrey, dump offs, you got Yak Daddies, Debo, Ayuk, Sammy, Kittle.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, San Francisco is still a good play here. And I hope what I would do is I'd probably wait a little bit more to see if you can get this number inside 3. Because
if you can, yeah, Frisco's definitely would be the play. I mean, at 3, like you said, 21-17, that's a good number. I could see that game being, landing on that. Then you get the over 238 points. But no, you're right. With the supporting cast that Frisco has, Samuel, McCaffrey, these guys are great, and he can manage a game. I look at guys. This might be a young guy, but he can manage the game, and he did it last week. Probably do it this week. So we'll circle on Frisco over here because you know what? I've learned a lot of times when a guy like you says, you give me a score like that, makes sense. Anything that makes sense, I kind of tail.
But it does make sense though, right?
It
Because
does.
you're looking at it right now and it says this is a 3 to 4 point game. They think San Francisco is going to win by 3 to 4 points on paper, probability. And the
That's right.
total's 37.5, 38. So by this metric, you would think, by this prediction, you would say that's a realistic type of score that they're expecting from this game. But if you're looking at getting involved in this game, you want to get skin on this, I don't think right now is the time to attack. I would wait to see, because you're going to get even more public that are going to say this. I feel like a lot of people are going to come in and say this. Oh, Tampa Bay, Tom Brady returning home. They just won. Tampa Bay's back. They're back. They're going to be on the road going against Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. And then you're going to hammer Tampa Bay. It's going to be a public side, and whether it wins or not is irrelevant. But what I think happens is if enough people are going to get on it, which is going to happen, it's going to drop this number to 3, maybe even 2.5, possibly. So I don't think you're going to get too much harm in waiting if you want to back the Niners right
now. Yeah, and you make a good point. At the beginning of the week, it's the narrative. I always look at the narrative. What's the narrative? Brady going home, everything else. And then I get more serious as tomorrow and Thursday come in, and then more information come. And I'm not talking about information from teams. I'm talking from information from guys I respect. I do watch a lot of podcasts myself and listen to a lot of podcasts that are relevant. But no, you make a good point there.
So that's one for the Bucs. On a side note, I really, really need my boy Nick Bosa to have a repeat performance of last week. He is ultimately my defensive player of the year. Also have a nice position on him, and I thought I was he got me worried a little bit because everybody is obsessed with Micah Parsons, and even if he's not doing anything in the stat sheet, they're like, it's just off reputation. And he plays for Dallas, and then the fallback's always, well, they line him up at linebacker, so who cares if he doesn't get the stats? Like, no, if you go look at the numbers, Bosa on merit should be the favorite right now, but I think Bosa, I'm looking for him to at least eclipse a sack. He's got 1 sack in every single game this year, except for the game against Carolina, because he left at around halftime with that groin injury. So I'm looking for my boy Bosa to keep the season going. I realistically need 8.5 sacks from him for the rest of the year in order to break the sack record. In order to break the sack record, he needs 8.5
What kind of
for
number
the
did you
next
get on him
level.
for Johnny Defensive Player of the Year? Did you
What did I
know?
get him at?
Yeah.
I got him at 8-1 probably like 2 months ago.
Oh,
And then
okay. Okay. After the season started. All right. Yes.
by
Well,
that point, yeah, by that point, so I think if I'm not mistaken, I have to go back and check my numbers. I want to say he was about 15-1 preseason, right before it
sure.
started to win Defensive Player of the Year. And, good price, but he's been hanging in the 10-1 to 14-1 range for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And, he kind of revived himself after Sunday against Miami, which is exactly what I needed. And this race is tight right now. And I think
Sure.
if Bosa even ties the sack record, which is possible, he needs 8 sacks over the last 5 games. So let's say, he's got a couple butter matchups where he might be able to pick up 2, maybe 3 sacks in 1 or 2 more games, and that ultimately
Yeah. If
catapults
you
him back.
if you can escape, you see what they do to him. They try to double team him, leave a running back in there, which is no chance. I mean, to block this, Bosa, but 8.5 sacks over 5 games. It's going to be tough. But if there's somebody that can do it, it's him. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
My fingers crossed here. So let's get to this game
Yeah.
that I'm very intrigued about for your opinion, because right now this is featuring my favorite bet of the week.
Okay.
Carolina Panthers at the Seattle Seahawks, who are laying 3.5 points in the Pacific Northwest. Do you think Carolina's got a late season magical run in them to overtake the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC South?
They do. As we see an inconsistent Bucks team, we see a Carolina team that's playing better ball. They're picking up 3.5 to 4. So there's some money. There's some money coming in Seattle. Geno Smith. I call him Geno Marino. He's got I mean, between his passing yards, his completion percentage is just fantastic. 22 TDs, 6 interceptions. Um, I think that this game, as I look at the numbers across the board, I want to see, God, some guys jumped it up to 4.5. Oh, that's DraftKings. Don't pay too much attention to those guys. But I see Carolina giving Seattle a game. 425 east to west, no problem. I don't know if weather's going to be a factor. Usually do weather about Thursday, but when I look at matchups, unlike you, Johnny, you probably play a lot of fantasy. I look at Pro Football Focus, get those matchups, get those numbers, get myself, familiar with these defense on offense. But I see Carolina coming on strong. The remainder of their schedule, we don't have time to go over it, but they have a few division games left in a weak division. That's going to be huge. Um, think I think that Carolina, that line's right on where it should be. Seattle 3.5. If it goes to 4, boy, I'll definitely ride Carolina because I love going against the public. It's what I do.
Seattle has been an ATM to me this season. And
Have they really? Yeah.
yeah, Geno Smith is one of my biggest positions this year's comeback player of the year. So
Yes.
I've been rooting for him like there's no tomorrow. Because this is great to see. And I also have Seattle in the futures. I took a bite on them to win the NFC West a few weeks ago. Don't laugh, but I took a shot for them to win the Super Bowl. Not that I think I think it was maybe like 37, 38-1. And I only
Wow.
did it not because I thought they would win, but because I said, okay, if they make the playoffs, and then let's say they drew a Minnesota first rounds, and they're beatable. That's a winnable matchup.
That is.
Then, then I could start playing the hedge game. Then I could start betting against them because I created enough equity where I would come away with something if I chose to. But I just thought getting involved in them would be fun. But in terms of this matchup here, John, I'm thinking, Seattle's a tough team to go against, even though their defense has looked putrid in the last
Right.
few weeks. But the thing that worries me about Carolina, they're 0-5 on the road this year. They do not play well away from home. And you really don't know which version of them you're going to get. And typically the best version is when they play at home. And I think ultimately, I got my eyes on Seattle right now, but I want to leave you with this. You're an old time guy.
Yeah.
You're not old. You're old time.
Yeah.
Are you familiar?
Definitely.
Are you familiar with the rule of 5.5 for road dogs?
Back in the day, funny story. Um, any that number 5.5 is a funny number.
Yep.
And anytime you see there was a big stat. It's kind of changed a little bit. But anytime you can take 5.5 points, you take it. As a home dog plus 5.5. Now a road dog, um, getting 5.5 was also a play on. Just the team that's catching that 5.5 points is what we used to play. It's kind of changed a little bit. I haven't seen it recently. I don't pay much. I mean, I used to pay a lot of attention to it. What do you have on that?
So okay, so this is funny, right? Because I didn't invent this. I wasn't the one who brought this to light. But like I have somebody that I know personally that's been in the business for over 40 years. This is something he told me about 4 or 5 years ago. He said, "Listen, you always back the road dog getting 5 or 5.5." And I was
Right,
like, "Why? What does it matter?" He goes, "Because it's a weird number Vegas cannot handicap." And you get all the analytical people that are like, "Oh, well, what does that matter? It's not a key number, this and that." Like they always try to put math in, bro. Like I'm telling you, like this is an old school guy that's been around the block 45 times before you even got out of bed this morning. This is a number where Vegas doesn't know how to price a team because they're saying, all right, well, 6 points we think is too much, but 3.5 points is not enough. You know what I mean? So it's always been a weird rule, but I actually have the numbers to back it up. And the
right,
rule was always road dog 5 or 5.5 getting, but it has to close at that. Like
right.
if you see 5.5 right now and it closes at 4 on Sunday, that doesn't
It's no
count.
good. Yeah, it's no good.
It's no good. It's got to actually close at 5 or 5.5. And if Carolina closes at that number, then I automatically switch to it. I don't need a reason why. I will do it. The only time I didn't play that number this year was when the Colts played in New England starting Sam Ellinger. That's the only
Sure.
time I said I'm off. I'm not doing it.
Some good advice. I mean, your contact, your friend. I mean, he's a smart guy. I mean, that's an old school handicap rule, and I'm glad it's still alive today.
It's
But
funny
it's
because
true.
like I've never, you're the only person who's in the business, like in the handicapping business out
Right.
there that I've heard even understand that rule. It's crazy. I've talked to so many people that don't know what it is. They've never
No.
heard of it. They don't understand it. And you know, I have a circuit group with a few guys that I worked with, and early on in the season, I would tell them this. I was like, guys, like, and so it's funny, right? A quick story. Week 2, Cardinals were playing at the Raiders. And everyone's like, all right, we're going to take the Raiders, take the Raiders. I was like, well, what number is Circa giving us? It's like, oh, it's 5.5. Arizona's on the road 5.5. They're like, yeah. I was like, we're taking Arizona. They're like, why? Like, the PFF grades and the this and the data says. I'm like, just listen to me. Listen to me. You
Right.
always take the road dog getting 5.5. And since then, John, if you look at my Twitter bio, I coined it the Royal Mint because it's like a printing press. And
The
they
Royal
didn't buy
Mint. I
it.
love it. Yeah.
They didn't buy it, and I was like, "Listen, do it. Just trust me." From then on, they were like, "All right, we buy it," and we kept doing it. We kept doing it. It kept winning, and then there's actually numbers to back it up. Over even going back like the last 15 plus years, it's very very favorable, and I'm glad to see it's still working. I'm
Oh
trying
yeah,
to.
that was 38 years ago that we were looking at, hey, 5.5, 5.5, boom,
I
hit it.
try to bestow this knowledge onto people, and I'm glad that I finally found somebody that knows it and understands it, and I don't have to explain it to.
Well, the lucky thing about it is, back when I was betting, I mean, and booking, and then I was still betting, you could only bet the day of the game. There was no early action unless you were in Vegas. You go to Vegas, you could get the lines, but I mean, we Sunday morning we'd get calls from Angel Kaplan, out in Vegas. Here are the numbers. We turn the New York guys onto them. They get the numbers, and the rest is history. You got your bets in on NCAA on Saturday, the pros on Sunday, and that was it, man. But no, I think I got a good education here from you, Johnny. I like that. I like your point of view, man. I like to listen to different guys and hear what they say. You must be leading a lot of fantasy leagues right now, huh?
I'm doing all right. I've had some really bad injury luck in like get leagues or what matchups where I'm losing by less than 2 points. Like last night, I lost a matchup by 0.8 points.
Yeah,
it's been a tough year with stuff like that. But ultimately, if you win one or two and you come away with some money, then
that's the
you're
good thing
pretty
about getting older is I got all the guys and my son-in-laws. They're all playing fantasy, and so I lean on them. I'm like, hey, you see any matchup problems or anything else? So it's not as much work as it used to be. The more people that are knowledgeable, the better off I am as basically, handicapping, yes, but betting is what my main goal is, to bet and win, and I'll take all the information I can get.
So you know what the problem I found is that there's too many people doing this
Yeah,
in the space, and the reason it's a problem is because you're getting too many opinions, and a lot of their opinions aren't good. Is my opinion.
right.
There's only I could count on one hand how many people I truly listen to and believe and trust, aside from myself, when they speak about betting. It's a very short list. What's good about this now is there's all these tools and insights and data that you can use, and that stuff that's factual that cannot be misinterpreted mostly,
Right.
that's what you should use, and then you form your own opinions yourself after you've done your
Sure.
own research. But
Yeah, absolutely.
you're on the ball there. Well, quick note about this game. I'm curious to see what's going on with Kenny Walker. DJ Dallas took on a lot of snaps on Sunday against the Rams. So it wouldn't ultimately affect whether I took Seattle or not, but it's just something to monitor, especially down the stretch. The Seahawks are in a fight right now, and they do have a chance to overtake the Niners in the division. They need a win this week, and then they need
Yeah.
to beat the Niners next week. And if that
That's
happens,
gonna be a hell of a game. Yeah, that'll be a hell of a
yes,
game.
yes. So, John,
Let's throw Go ahead, I'm sorry.
as we do here on every show, I have a segment here of my best betting trends. So I'm going to hit everybody with tonight for Sunday, Seattle Seahawks -3.5. If it stays at 3.5, if it gets to 5 or 5.5 for Carolina, I'm automatically on Carolina. I think Seattle is going to continue to pump on offense. Their passing game is too good right now. Geno Smith, Papa, DK, Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, the whole gang. It's an onslaught. It's an avalanche of weapons and attacking. So I just don't think Carolina's solid defense is going to be able to keep up in that regard.
Right.
So, John, heading into this week, what are you thinking? What's your final thoughts? Is there anything additionally that you're looking at?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, injury reports have a lot to do with it. Um, as I dive deeper into these games, I'll find something. But the initial four games that we like, yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna keep my eyes on those. Um, be honest with you, Minnesota travels to Detroit, not to get off but it went up to 2.5. Detroit -2.5. They're playing good ball at home. I'll look at that game a little closer. Um, Jets Bills. Boy, Bills catching, Jets catching 9.5 at Buffalo. If it goes to 10, uh, I might be a buyer on the Jets. But other than that, I'll be concentrating on the rest of the week. I do a lot of work tonight moving forward. And then, as I told you in a conversation last night, a lot of calls, a lot of talking to guys. What's going on in Vegas? Where's this guy betting? We find out. We share information, as I'm sure you do with your guys.
I do. Talk to me. You know what? I wanted to touch on this, so I'm glad you reminded me. The Vikings are getting 2.5 points at the Lions. So now I saw Twitter in the last like 36 hours. They're in an uproar. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, the 10-2 Vikings are 2.5 point dogs at the Detroit Lions, the 5-win Lions, and like people are going crazy over it. And one of my guys at Better Sports
Right.
Network, his name's Rick Kamla. He's a true pro in the game. He always tells me this. He goes, Johnny V, sometimes I look at a line and there's just a wow factor. There's a wow factor. Like that's a wow factor. Last week it was Miami getting 3.5 on the road to the Niners. Oh, really? Only the Niners are 3.5, 4-point favorites at home. So I think this is a similar situation. Me and him are going to talk about it on Thursday. But this line here, here's what I think. Like Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? And I want your thoughts on this. Everybody, all the Joes, they're going to be like, the Vikings have 10 wins. Why are they almost a field goal underdog in Detroit? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I'm going to bet Minnesota. I'm going to bet Minnesota. Like, there's no way this line should be like that. I feel like they're begging you to take Minnesota, and that's where the public's going to go. And, the phrase where like, this is a trap line. This is a trap line. I don't know. Listen, I know some don't, but I don't know how else to describe this. I think this is a spot where you hammer the lines, and I think the Sharps are going to be on the Lions this week. Aside from the line movement and just something doesn't sit right, it's fishy, I think matchup-wise, they're more than capable of taking them down. They should have beat them earlier in the season. They blew a lead. They missed a field goal. Amon-Ra gets hurt. I think this is a spot where the Lions might win outright, and I think the Lions could win convincingly.
Yeah, they could win outright. I mean, money line right now. I mean, you look at that run defense. If Minnesota just ran Dalvin Cook, I mean, Detroit's run defense is 28th in the league. Okay, so let's say cut the matchup between Cousins and Goff, pretty even. I mean, 19 touchdown pass for Goff. But that said, I'm looking at Minnesota's going to want to run the ball and control the clock. But it is an NFC, North Division game. It is, in Detroit. So I would think that they're begging you, like you said, Johnny. They're begging you to take Minnesota, and that line move is something we'll watch closely, because if we see it drop to 1.5 or 2, right there, we know they're starting. And I'm gonna ride with the books on that one. I'm telling you, over my lifetime, when you ride with the books in the long term, you're gonna win, because the books always, in the long term, the books have won.
Yeah.
They didn't build Circa on a bunch of winners,
Right.
But,
What's interesting?
that's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be a very, very interesting game. But until further notice, I do like the Lions at home.
It's got to be Lions, right? Yeah, the Lions are probably going to be on one of my favorite plays. I think I was looking, so just based off like looking at numbers all year, the Lions are playing much better at home. I think they're scoring close to double. They're scoring close to double their points. Like Goff looks much better at home. The whole team performs better in Detroit over the course of the season.
Right.
So I think that's another angle as well. And some teams, I don't really care about home versus away, but other teams it does matter. Other teams it does matter.
A lot of guys throw home field advantage out the window. Yeah. Minnesota is 4-1 on the road. I mean, that's not worrisome, but it's something to look at. But then again, it's a division game. We'll just have to see what transpires over the week. Like I said, Johnny, I'll be watching these numbers, looking for these line moves, and then when the Sharps have made some plays, but then you'll notice about 3 hours before the game, there'll be some real sharp action coming, and they'll see the public going one way, boom, the Sharps come in, go the other way, and everybody, including DraftKings and FanDuel, they're scared of Sharps. So the Sharps don't bet with those guys.
Nor should they. At least
nor should they, because you'll be limited to 99 cents. Big winners.
At least as of right now. I do No, listen, I agree with what you're saying. I think this is definitely one that we should watch. And also another game I think we need to watch here without getting into too much depth is the Giants Eagles.
Yes.
I'm curious about that one. It was 7. It's come down to 6.5. I feel like there's been, the early money on the Giants, and I think this is one where they could give them a problem here. But
Johnny, let me
well,
ask you, where you get that 6.5 number from? I'm just curious.
FanDuel's got it at
Oh,
six and a
okay,
half. I see
FanDuel.
DraftKings
Yeah,
best at
FanDuel's a
7.
half point different because Westgate, South Point, Caesars, Circa, right as of, and this is about 7 minute delay. They've got Philadelphia -7 with the early money, 83% of the money. And Johnny, I mean, a lot of guys don't put that much into it. I put a lot into it. Maybe it's helped me with my success over the years. 83% of the money on Philadelphia. Anything over 75 worries me. But
Are you on Wager Talk?
83,
Looking at
I
83%.
am on Wager Talk, the live odds. I mean, as I told you previously, if I were to buy this from Don Best, it'd cost me $700 a month. And I used to. I used to, I on Sunday, my wife's like, "You got computers all over the house." I'm like, "Yeah, I want to see the numbers move." Every TV's got a game on. One's got Red Zone, the other's got NFL Ticket. She's like, "We need Comcast and Direct TV." And oh yeah, we need it all. We need it all. Trust me.
I
You
should
know.
come. I mean, too bad. Like I would have came down and stayed with you every Sunday when I lived down in Florida.
Ah, man, especially over here in Sarasota. I mean, it's the hottest place in the world. Beautiful day today, 82 degrees. I mean, come
Oh, rub it
on.
in, rub it in.
Oh,
Why
I
don't
came
you?
in, I'm like, "Oh, the air conditioning. Boy, is it hot out there." But,
Rub it in a little bit more.
yeah, what's the temperature up there where you are right now? About 30 something?
It's probably like high 30s, low 40s.
Oh, high 30s. That's not bad. If you
No,
wanna
it's bad.
freeze
It's
your
not.
if you wanna
It's not bad.
freeze, no, I'm kidding you. I'm kidding you. I've been in Florida I got out of Chicago when things, as I told you, when things got a little bit hot. And my wife got sick of me doing that, and so I've been here ever since. Travel to Vegas quite a bit. We'll have to meet out there,
Yeah,
and
we
say
do.
hi to all the guys.
We gotta say
We
what's
got
up to
good.
everybody.
Yeah,
John,
man.
I really appreciate you coming on. It's a real treat to have somebody who knows the game for well over 35 years. So I really appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Absolutely. I'm at Murges John on Twitter. The only social media platform I use is Twitter. No Facebook, no Instagram, just Twitter. At
No
Murges
TikTok.
John.
You don't like? I feel like a guy like
I
you
love
must be on
it.
TikTok.
It's addicting, man. It's cell phone crack, though. I mean, I get on there and I just can't stop. Not that I've ever smoked any crack, but I know people that have, and it's something you don't want to do. From what I hear, I'm like, don't do it. I'm like, I'm not. But yeah, I'm on TikTok a lot more than I should be. I'm on Twitter a lot more than I should be. But I enjoy the interaction. Met a lot of people that I could, go back and forth with on Twitter. Actually met them mostly out in Vegas, and it's a pretty cool platform. I like it.
It's good,
But
man.
Johnny, hey, I gotta say, your knowledge next year, if I do play fantasy, which I may, um, I'm gonna cut you in on half, and we'll get as many teams because there's some big guys down here. We can take their money. Some big money guys.
I like
You
taking money.
know.
I like taking money from other
Yeah,
people.
I'll just instead of looking at Pro Football Focus and be like, look at the matchup, look at it. I mean, I spend hours on Pro Football Focus looking at matchups until I get the call from my guys. I'm on there myself. Oh, look, this week over here. Call you, Johnny. What do you think about this matchup over here? You give me the games. We'll set
Well,
the lineups.
not for nothing. We got college baseball coming up. That's my
Well,
ace in
then
the
we got to
hole.
call Matt Grissom and you and Matt Grissom. Matt Grissom, so everybody knows out there, Matt Grissom is one of my guys he is the guy that I use for college baseball. As a matter of fact, he's so respected. He goes to Circa, and they don't have the college baseball lines out. And sure enough, Matt goes up to Jeff Benson and says, "Listen, I want to bet this game." Doesn't give him the team, gives him the game. Jeff will come back about 5 minutes later with a line on that game. So Circa's, I really enjoy it. Best sports book in Las Vegas, probably in the country.
We
So I
we
got
will have to we will have to make a trip out there. Definitely, we have to get in touch on that. So quick, I told you this last night. Matt Grissom was the only person I actually saw put out college lines last year. I mostly saw it during the tournaments, like the regionals and the super regionals, and I saw his picks were pretty good. That's the only person
Yeah.
I can actually say, besides myself, of course, that I was like, college baseball better, pretty interesting. But like at the time, like you said, he wasn't really a handy. He did it on the side for fun. It wasn't really a job.
Yeah, he's just a successful realtor. The one thing you got to be careful with is big Arkansas Razorback fan. So
Yeah, I know.
he'll
He
have
picked them
five.
every
Yeah,
week.
yeah,
Every
5
week.
games. He'll pick 5 games. It's up to you to take that Arkansas or not, because that's basically a homer play for him. No disrespect, if Matt sees me say that, but I love him. He's a great guy, and um, I need to meet him, man. I've talked to him and interact with him, but we've missed each other every trip to Vegas. He's always a week behind or a week ahead of me. But we'll get out there. We'll get out there in the springtime. I'm going out there for March Madness. College basketball is another one of my passions, although I haven't really been about 4 college basketball games this year. So once football season's over, because you talk about 300 teams and, there's a lot of guys to look at and everything else. So we'll have some data by then.
Let's
But
do it,
real
man.
pleasure,
John
man.
Murges. John
This is a
Murges, you're
pleasure.
the best. You're the best.
Oh
You're the
man,
best.
I wish my wife could hear that. I'll have her watch the replay. See, I am the best. She doesn't believe it, but Johnny, if you do, I appreciate it, man. You're a great guy. It was great to be invited onto your show.
Got to do it again soon, man. Let's stay talking, and we'll talk soon. And really
We'll keep in
appreciate it.
touch.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.